Hello and welcome. Today we are absolutely delighted to welcome you to C2S TV. This is the TV channel that interviews interesting business people with interesting conversations. And today we are delighted to welcome Jack Cook, entrepreneur and CEO of First Thought Care Services. Welcome, Jack.
Hello.
So we first met First Thought Care Services about 6 months ago when they joined C2S. Jack has got really ambitious growth plans for First Thought, and he wanted to raise their profile and support on their growth journey, but also to get the messaging out around the great career opportunities to work in the care sector. So for those of you that know the care sector, you may well know there is a national crisis of finding the right people for this sector and also for tapping into that future talent. And Jack is absolutely passionate about changing the perception of care and what it is to work in care and how rewarding it is when you can help support other people. So our title for today's C2S TV is Suicide to Success. And that feels quite a powerful title. But when I met Jack, I actually learned about his story, which is so inspiring that actually it's a story worth telling. And it's a story of resilience and the ability to pick yourself up and move yourself forward. And so it was a great opportunity with C2S TV to have Jack on to talk about that. Jack faced huge challenges as he was growing up in his early years, and yet he's managed to change and turn that trauma around into making a real difference in this sector. He attempted suicide himself a number of times, and he completely gave up on life as the system had completely given up on him. He's now gone on to create an unbelievably successful business. He employs over 100 people. They support over 75 people. He works with NHS, schools, local government, county councils. They're supporting children, young adults, and helping adults back on the right track to a good life, which that's where Jack's story started. And he needed that help and support too. So our title, Suicide to Success, is where it all started. So Jack, over to you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on and inviting me on. Um, so I guess where it all started so I grew up in Gloucestershire myself, and both my parents are both profoundly deaf. So I guess my childhood in being a coder, a child of deaf adults, it was different to many others. And growing up, I absolutely hated school. Really struggled. I was bullied myself for, I guess, being different, or my parents being different and communicating differently. And then when I was 14, that's when I was first sectioned for trying to take my own life. And again, when I was 16, which I guess was kind of re-traumatizing rather than helpful at the time. Uh, And so going through, I've got sort of two older sisters and a younger brother. And so life was very, very chaotic for me. It never felt sort of, I guess, stable and requiring lots of sort of one-to-one intervention in school, sort of whether it be clinical intervention or medication or support. Um, yeah, so I guess that's kind of my journey up until um, I started working in care when I came out of being sectioned at 16. Um, and I mean, really, really strangely, I actually started in care as going to work during the day and coming home and having support at night, whilst looking after people during the day. And yeah, so that's kind of like my journey in childhood in a snapshot, really.
And because now at such a young age of 25, it's kind of like you've lived a lot of years and packed a lot in those 25 years. But what was the turning point? So because you're ADHD as well, so obviously that was challenging, trying to learn the environment. The impact of bullying is just absolutely tragic. And obviously you felt at that point you had absolutely nowhere to turn and nowhere to go. So not being here seemed probably easier than being here. And so, what was the turning point? Because I know when we talked, you talked to me about how you felt that nobody should have to go through that, and actually how you'd felt completely let down. And in life, people can go two ways. When you've had all of that trauma and you've been so desperate, a lot of people can carry on down that road of victim. But what was the change for you that you thought, actually, I need to do something about this. I have to do what happened sort of in your mind to take you from that real desperate point to actually being able to achieve and employ these, 100+ people.
Really, really good question. I think that what there wasn't, I guess, a change as such. I mean, I established the organization in 2020 during COVID. So again, more changes in life, I guess, for everyone. Um, but for me, it was when working for others in care, there was such sort of systemic issues that I could see being the reason for the failings within the system. And so for me, it was very much of I can't just sit back and do nothing. Let's I'm no longer going to be the service user. Let's do it myself. And let's be the change. And that's exactly why I set up First Thought Care Services and what our mission is really.
And I suppose because you had that lived experience, you could kind of see the gaps and you could see how people could fall through, which I think, again, we've talked around the services that you provide, which is quite far reaching, but you do have an expertise for helping those really traumatized children, kind of, children that have given up, like yourself, because you can relate to them, and that's very, very relatable. So it's just, there's something special about, turning a traumatic experience into a positive one. So what would you say motivates you, and how did you go about it? There'd be a lot of people out there now that would be saying, well, actually, I've got a passion for something, but there's one thing having a passion, and there's another thing about actually making it all happen. So how did you go about it?
I mean, well, it feels such a long time ago compared to where we are now and the sort of growth that we've done in them 5 years. Um, what how did I go about it was really initially was it's what I think it's like £13 to register on Companies House, and it was just taking that initial step of going, right, do you know what, I'm going to do it. No one's going to tell me not to do it or to do it, or well, lots of people will tell you not to do it because it's risky.
Yeah.
But just making that leap, and I think that for my what keeps my drive and my motivation is the successes that we see in every story that we have. Everyone has their own story, and it's just about us being able to tune into that story and sort of look at everything holistically. I think that things like, I don't know, restraint. I know what it's like to be restrained onto the floor when I was in hospital and sort of IMing and things like that. And so it's making sure that I don't repeat what traumatized me, and because it could have been done so differently. And so yeah, in how I started, it was just kind of having that dream, and then I mean, where we are now, this was never ever in my business plan in starting out, but also allowing things to kind of take its natural course and go, okay, right, we're going to and be ready to sort of evolve with it, which is where my sort of ADHD is my massive benefit in being able to kind of quickly change at any point.
That in itself is inspiring because, again, the world is just starting to change now and wake up to the fact that, people with dyslexia, people with ADHD, they have huge value. You're a really successful entrepreneur, and probably, as you just said, some of that is probably because of the ADHD. So it's instead of saying, oh, there's something wrong with you and you've got learning disabilities, it's actually, I think the world of business now is starting to go, wow, these are our creatives. These are our entrepreneurs. They think differently. So we need to embrace that and embrace the people that think like that.
Mm.
And I have a lived experience with my youngest daughter. She's very dyslexic, but again, she has huge, huge qualities. Um, and I've talked to a number of your staff, and you can really boast a fantastic retention rate of 99%. And I know that the people that work in your business, they really know they make a difference. They feel very valued by you, which is great. And they're very proud of the job that they do. And I know that that's really important to you. That's one of your passions, is to change the perception. So if you could be talking to people now about a career in care, what would you be saying to them?
It's not what you expect. It's not what you might see in I don't know, NHS adverts where it could be much more around the kind of personal care aspects, as that's what people think care is. But there is so much more of that. It's natural. It doesn't feel like a job. When I go to work, it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't. It feels like I'm coming home as well, going from home to home. Um, every day is entirely different. Today I could be going to Alton Towers. Tomorrow I could be um, having a crisis meeting with a family and seeing as to how best we can support them, or what they could, or supporting them to do something or implement something different at home, to going into schools. So I think anyone that's looking to work in care, just at least don't close the door.
Explore it.
Absolutely.
Come and talk to you. Um, but I mean, we are so proud and delighted to have you as a partner at our educational outreach live event this year. When we had just under 1,800 students last year at the at the race course, and you were there and you were part of that. But I know that you do a lot trying to get that message across to young people, and even young people like yourself that hadn't done well at school. You're kind of like, look, we're an open door. Come talk to us because you have a value as a young person, and we can train you. We can help you. You just give, if you've got the right attitude, come to us and we'll talk to you. And I think that's where your story is just so inspiring, because a lot of young people, they think, oh, I don't fit into that sort of school education. I'm rubbish, I'm stupid, I'm useless. And yet sharing stories like yours kind of say, no, you just need a good attitude and you can learn the rest. A good passion, a good attitude, and you can take that forward. So, what's your ambition then for first thought going forward?
um, to be everybody's first thought. No,
Oh, that's really good.
I would say I just made it up
Yeah,
on the
just
spot.
thought about that.
Um,
That's your creative side coming through.
I'd say I really want to be able to currently we're heavily supplying into Gloucestershire, which is where we're based and originally sort of set up, and Herefordshire and Bath and North East Somerset. I'd really like to kind of expand our offering to more families in wider sort of counties and hopefully sort of work more down south and hopefully up north as well. Um, and because the amount of families that we do speak to that don't know where to turn, or don't know where to look, or don't have the support available, I'd love to kind of be able to change that and be able to have at least another offer in being one of our services.
And I think, we talked about that as well, isn't it? It's getting that message out so that people do feel in a desperate time they know where to go because they do feel so failed by the NHS. And we hear the stories all the time. There's too many queues, you can't get an appointment with the doctor. You're on a waiting list with 3 million other people, and so it's a helpless situation. So I think we talked about raising your profile, getting that message out. If you don't know what to do, just maybe contact somebody like you, and you can be a starting point to help them. And I know that you're really proud as well because you're now one of the only organisations that can hand out food vouchers because that system's changed, hasn't it? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so for our families that we support, our staff, it was really, I wanted to see as to how we can go that extra mile even further and be able to help when maybe we're not involved. And so we're able to hand out food vouchers for Gloucestershire Food Bank, so that if any of our families or and particularly there's loads of statistics that those families who may have children with additional needs or SEN needs are likely or have statistically sort of suffered financially as a result, that there are other options. And we wanted to kind of be able to provide that for our staff and those that we support and their families as well.
Tell us a bit more about the services that you do deliver then. So we've talked a little bit about some of them, but what is the range of the services?
The range of services. So our kind of I never want to have to be that organization that when somebody, I don't know, reaches 18 or has a certain condition that we have to say, oh, so sorry, we're no longer the service, door
Yeah.
shuts, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that. And so we are constantly expanding in and learning. We are an alternative to education provider, so particularly supporting children who may be permanently excluded from education or their school, as well as um, children who may not be able to have a specialist provision setting, or may not have a school in their area that meets their needs, or they're too challenging. Um, that's where our alternative to education provision comes into play.
Okay.
And then we also do sort of short breaks, crisis intervention, so going out in families' homes, schools, supporting schools, and then we have our adult services, which is sometimes community, overnight respite within one of our services, or supported living. Our youngest at the moment is currently 4, and our oldest currently is 37. So a huge kind of range. And um, as I say, it's not necessarily what you see on TV. One day you could be outside in one of our hot tubs or swimming pool with a 5-year-old, and the next hour or the next day, it could be that you're supporting someone by I don't know, helping them clean their house and maintain their tenancy. So a complete array of services.
Yeah, wow, gosh. And I think you're right. There is a complete misconception and misunderstanding. And you do a lot of great work going out and talking to kids at school as well, don't you? And just explaining to them the different opportunities and the different career paths that they can move in. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge to date?
My biggest challenge to date is probably my age. I think often a lot of other people within either our field, whether it be other professionals, families, um, think that or believe that because of my age, either I can't do what I'm doing or I don't have enough experience or knowledge, or and that's my biggest downfall. But once I'm able to show them I'm an expert by experience,
Mm.
and I have qualifications in this field, and everything that I do does come with experience. That it's changing that perception, but that's I'd say is an ongoing challenge. I don't know when that stops.
Yeah, yeah, because you're just so young. They think, how could you possibly
Yeah,
possibly be doing this? But like you say, I guess with that learned experience, that's life experience, isn't it? That you can take forward and do something really, really positive with. So what would you say to people, young people that maybe have got an idea or they would like to start their own business? What would you say to them?
Go for it. I think that if you don't try something, you're never going to know.
Mm,
And what's the worst that can happen? Worst that can happen is you close it down.
mm,
And believe in your passion. Otherwise, life's boring. So yeah, 100%. And I think that just be open-minded. If it's whether it be exploring a career in care or finance. I failed all of bar two of my GCSEs. I've now done an interpreting degree. I've now done my adult management qualification, my children's management qualification, and because it's done differently. So
mm.
don't give up on a dream.
You're learning about something that you enjoy and something
Absolutely.
that's passionate about you. Therefore, you can absorb that information, and I think, that's the challenge with some people at school is having to learn things that just they're not relatable to them, and therefore
And
it
in
does.
the way, in the style of
Yeah.
teaching sort of 30 at a time, it can be extremely difficult. And that's why sort of in our alternative to education provision, it's one-to-one for that reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is such a pleasure and a delight to talk to you. And we love having you as members of C2S. And you've got such a great team there. And we're really looking forward to our continued work with you and raising your profile and helping you achieve all of your ambitions going forward. Thank you so much for talking to us, Jack Cook, CEO of First Thought Care Services. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you so much for having me on.